Don, we can finally talk about your hands-on time with Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD-2D Remake. What a mouthful that is. You played it at Gamescom. You put a decent amount of time into it, I believe. Tell me more about this game. It's a remake of the original NES and Famicom games, right? What more do I need to know?
Yes. So I do need to explain for people who have never played a Dragon Quest game before. So Dragon Quest 3 chronologically came first. That's why it was remade last year.
Okay.
So it's the first game chronologically in the series timeline-wise. 1 and 2 came out technically in the timeline come after, but gameplay-wise, they were the first two games.
Right.
So, which creates an interesting paradox because 3 was far and above the superior game of those three. Which, I mean, that's likely why they also bundled the first two games together, but they've added also a lot more story elements based on what happened in 3, so they also saw fit to add more basically to the overall scope of those two games. Which, that's the more positive thing about this is, like, my first demo, so I got two different demos. I got a demo with 1 and I got a demo with 2.
Okay.
1, going back to 1 is a very interesting thing now in this day and age. And I say this purely as an RPG fan, and I say this why? Because in Dragon Quest 1, there's only one person in your party.
Okay.
Which is the hero. There's no other party members in that game.
Wow.
You are a one-man army throughout that game.
That's crazy.
Which is both challenging and miraculously interesting.
Is it? I would feel like that would almost be too simple. Like, in turn-based combat, like, how many options can you have if it's just you?
I mean, you kind of also have to rely against any type of enemy with only one person. Okay. So you want to be completely fit for every type of enemy with your one player. So you kind of have to adapt, right, and sort of build strategies around that. Which is a very interesting thing to tackle, because if you look at RPGs now, they are filled with systems back and forth to make sure you have a more balanced team.
Right.
Here, you have a one-person army you sort of have to deal with. And it's sort of interesting how they did it back in the day, where it was like, instead of, even if you were fighting in group, they would attack you one-on-one every single time. And they sort of remained that, so to alleviate some of the stress of being all by yourself, you still sort of more fighting one against one per enemy instead of feeling you're fighting against the entire group.
Right.
It's a different feeling to have in an RPG in general, even in this day and age.
All right. Well, that sounds interesting. So, so you enjoyed playing 1?
I did. I think this is also the first time like I really enjoyed 1, because they try to tie it more to Dragon Quest 3 now.
That's actually really cool. These are almost more, because before 3 obviously came later, but now it seems like 1 and 2 are leading up, or rather, they tie in better because they were able to develop it chronologically this time.
Yes, for sure. And I think the great thing about that is that they've added a bunch of characters and scenarios that make complete sense in the context of Dragon Quest 3 and now sort of cross over into Dragon Quest 1.
Okay.
So they really heavily expanded that game. And it used to be, at most, like a 10-hour game, Dragon Quest 1. I easily feel with the scenarios they're adding and the new places they're adding, they can easily add a good number on top of that, especially if they're trying to build up what they were putting down first with Dragon Quest 3.
Right. Well, that sounds really good. So is the gameplay, like, it's still reminiscent of the original, obviously, but does it feel, does the gameplay also feel meaningfully built upon too, or is it more the story elements that are fleshing it out?
I mean, they added new elements to sort of give your character more scope. There are specific items that you can gather that can give you different attacks and more options to play with.
Okay.
Which, once again, you do need to do that within the boundaries and the context of that singular character.
Right.
So you sort of have to find that balancing act that makes that perfect. But I was really impressed with how much freedom you basically still had as that singular character. And it still has all the modern comforts of an RPG. You can speed up your battles. You can freely choose up and change up your strategies. It feels a lot more coherent, which is which is very interesting. And I asked the producer after my play session from, hey, was it sort of daunting to go back to Dragon Quest 1? And he's like, yeah, it really was, because it's where it all started. Plus, I had to work with the game's creator, specifically Yuji Horii, to sort of make up new scenarios that tie it back into 3.
Right.
And it was a really daunting task, which I instantly believe that.
I fully believe it, and it's not just it's not just mechanically and story-wise that it's been updated, but also visually too. Obviously, it's in the title. They've given it the whole 2D, 3D perspective that we've seen in more recent Square games, right?
Yes. So you sort of look at the experience from an angle, and it's also a similar experience 2 and 3. You sort of look at it from an angle, where you can sort of look over the characters, but also see far more into the background.
Yeah.
So they sort of had to develop that with that in mind as well.
So it's Octopath Traveler-like, right?
Yes, for sure. So you feel like you're more looking into the background, which looks very pretty.
Almost like a diorama, almost, Or,
yes.
Yeah, sweet.
I mean, except if you're on the overworld map, where it sort of feels still a bit more overhead.
Okay.
And you have to realize the map in Dragon Quest 1 is not big. It's just basically on an island.
Right.
So you sort of see half of the island if you cross over. So they changed it more forward top-down angle to sort of see less, basically.
Okay.
But in the actual dungeons and actual places that you visit, you sort of feel more the diorama angle.
Got it. I assume the battles were random before, right? Are they still random here in 1 and 2, or?
Yes, they still pop up randomly. You don't see enemies appear on the overworld, except for the bosses. Obviously, you approach bosses. In one of the parts of the demo that I've seen, you come across a character that is very familiar to Dragon Quest fans, which is called Robin Hood.
Okay.
It's a Robin with 2 B's. It's Robin with 2 B's, and instead of the H is removed, Robin Hood. It's a very clever name.
Yes.
He never was on Dragon Quest 1 before.
Oh.
So he is a very familiar character to Dragon Quest fans, but he never was in Dragon Quest 1. So the fact that they've added a whole scenario with him adds to the lore of that character as well, which is very, very interesting.
That is very interesting. So how about, we've talked a lot about 1 specifically, how about 2? How's that shaping up compared to the original?
So 2 obviously was a more fleshed out game with actually having multiple party members.
Right.
It didn't have a full party yet, you only had 2 other people who joined you along your quest. They've actually added a new character that was essential to that game's story before, but never was playable. So they sort of... And that's what I mean with changing up elements, right? They basically added a character that was pivotal to the story of Dragon Quest II, but you could never play with.
Okay.
So basically, they've added a whole new party member and sort of changed up the ways how that game works to sort of make that function. And it sort of makes Dragon Quest II feel like inherently a different game.
Wow.
Because it's always been 3 party members, each has their specific role. But now with 4, you have more freedom of someone is more focused on quicker attacking, somebody's more focused on using spells, somebody can attack more, somebody can play more defensive. It feels like a far more balanced game, because Dragon Quest II was never an easy one. But it feels like now it feels more coherent in terms of difficulty.
Okay. Well, that sounds promising so far. So this almost sounds like it might be almost a bigger departure to a degree compared to the first game from its original. Is that right? Or
I think both are equally an interesting departure. 3 felt more traditional, and obviously they more enhanced stuff and added elements to it to make it feel bigger than it already was. With 1 and 2, they actually inherently had to change stuff to make sure that it feels still similar to the original games and how the games are represented, but also make the balance and tweak the things a little bit so it feels also a lot fairer or better for the newcomer.
Okay. Well, that sounds good. So you played the original games a fair amount, I assume, right?
Yes. I actually recently played them a few years ago when they were re-released on Switch 1 as just the classic games basically in their original form.
Nice. Yeah, I have the original Game Boy Color cartridge of the first 2, the original compilation actually, but never played much of it. So I'm actually wanting to go play that now. But so is this remake though? the remake you dreamed of? Like, is it what you would want it to be? Are there any areas of concern?
For sure. For sure. I do think 2 is still a bit on the challenging side. You also have to, like... So you can choose to let your party members decide what they do.
Auto attacks or whatever?
Yeah, I don't really recommend that, though. Because you sort of fall in the trap where you basically rely on automated attacks, and sometimes those go against what you exactly want to do.
Right.
So basically, during my time with 2, I was like basically tweaking everything that I want to do, making sure that I was doing all my attacks correctly. And man, it stressed me out a little bit more, but also at the same time, it gave me a relief of like, this is exactly how I want to play an RPG from beginning to end, knowing exactly what I get out of it and knowing what I want out of it.
Right.
Because doing stuff a bit too automated makes me a bit worried, and it doesn't really help that it dropped you in one of the huger dungeons of Dragon Quest II as well. So we were dropped like middle of a save file. So they were like, "Go figure it out."
Yeah,
like,
have fun.
Great, will do.
Well, hey, at least it beats, going through the whole tutorial segment of the game, right? Which always slows down demos sometimes, I feel like, so...
No, 100%. Yeah.
So, did you have any other takeaways from your time with both of these games? Or one game, but made up of 2 games?
No, I'm actually really impressed by it. Like, sincerely.
What impressed you the most? Like, what part really stood out to you the most?
Honestly, the fact that they have the courage of adding stuff to the original 2 games.
Yeah.
Because obviously, once again, they're the oldest games in the series, right? And they're the oldest games for a very good reason.
Right.
Especially if you look at Dragon Quest 1, you only have one party member, that's it.
Yeah.
But the fact that they're willing to add more scenarios to really tie it into that Dragon Quest 3 remake and make it feel also coherent to that remake.
Yeah.
And now make it also still feel self-contained is like something that I wanted them to do, but also was kind of worried after how well 3 was received. Because like adding stuff to the original 2 games can also really backfire on you.
It can, yeah. But this one seemed like it fit in well. Like it didn't stand out to you as jarring or anything.
No, absolutely not. It felt exactly like still thematic with how those original 2 games were designed.
I know it's too early to say for sure, but at this point, based on what you played, would you say it replaces the originals for you, or do you think it can still, or do you think there's still reason and merit to playing the originals versus the new ones?
I absolutely think it will, because it adds so much new context to the world of Dragon Quest, and those are the only 3 games that have stories that tie to one another, right? Because the games after this were completely standalone. So they needed to do this right, and I feel that they're doing it justice in so many ways that I'm really interested in where those 2 games will go in the end once I'm actually having my hands on a copy.
All right. Well, that sounds good, Don. You're actually making me want to play these a little bit. I'm not a huge JRPG guy, but it sounds like they're doing all the right things for these updates, right? Including
100%.
The presentation, the gameplay, the new story elements. Like, it all sounds really good, so...
Yes.
All right, well, I think we can wrap it up there for our discussion on Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD-2D Remake. They gotta figure out a better naming scheme for these, goodness. But if you want to see even more of our impressions of Gamescom, we have a whole video that covers even more games we played, so definitely give that a look. I'll link it on the screen in a moment here, if not already. Otherwise, Don, where can people follow you at if they want more of your Gamescom takes and everything else?
You can follow me at Nintendo, as NENTNDAAN.
And you'll find that link in the description below. With everyone, thank you for watching. Click subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll catch you later. Bye, everyone.